Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of video game news. Today is Friday, June 7th. Again, I am attempting here to get one pre-recorded episode recorded at least in the morning and start later, at least past noon, on the live streams. We have a Challenge the World Campaign Celebration login bonus, which has given us number C62 Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. I suppose these events that they've started doing slightly more recently is one way of just making sure everybody has a card that probably is a needed card. There's quite a bit of notifications, and there was an update here too, so it does just seem like they are possibly stepping things up and making some bigger changes on Yu-Gi-Oh! And yeah, I'm still starting with Yu-Gi-Oh! I still haven't figured out a way to really warm up. See, the warm-up is crazy for these streams, and just the amount of warm-up I need is crazy. In that I usually am taking, on top of running my macro, which probably takes 30 minutes to run, to open up all the video game news to talk about, I am usually sitting for another 5, 10, 20 minutes before I even hit the go button. So it seems like they may have finally gotten to a point now where they are adding pre-release cards to the digital version of the game. So has the digital version of the game finally caught up with either the Western version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the Japanese version of Yu-Gi-Oh! If it's caught up to the Japanese version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be something indeed. So, yeah. That's intriguing that maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Past 2 years has finally gotten to this point. And I may very well have some struggle here as far as just purchasing everything. Obviously I'd want to purchase this, but can I purchase this 3 times to get 3 copies of everything? Or can I only purchase it once? Let's see. That gets us several new things, and that gets us several new of the upsell secret packs, and you can only purchase it once. So with that pack, yeah. Oh, this was just a bunch of master packs, wasn't it? Master packs plus a bundle of some other cosmetics. I thought it was a structured deck. Not really paying enough attention here. And kind of pointless to buy all the cosmetics knowing that I've missed out on some cosmetic somewhere, I'm sure, from the previous event. This one's more expensive as a deluxe protector, which really just means it changes visuals. And here we have what looks very anime-esque in the wallpaper, which isn't really the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually has felt in the past. Okay. So this is a structured deck. And so the move here is to buy 3 copies of this because there's at least several super rares and an ultra rare, 2 ultra rares that we don't have, and so it's just way easier to spend 1,500 gems buying this 3 times to get ultra rares than it would be to try to get it any other way, crafting or otherwise. But of course these structured decks all give you structured deck cards that can't be turned into crafting, which seems like a mistake on their part. And so there's a new featured cards here. It's kind of hard to go through all this though when I really just kind of can't care about any of this. We'll go 1 free pool, and then I think we'll be somewhat conservative and not open anymore. Because yeah, if I was going to get a 10 pack and then I'd want to potentially get another 10 pack or even a third 10 pack, and I don't have enough gems for all of that. Then we have a whole new pack over here, same thing. And I don't know if these are really new packs as much as these might just be new packs that have new cards in them, old packs that have new cards in them. It says updated here, that makes me think that it is actually more of a situation where it's just updated. We have what seems like almost every possible secret pack unlocked there. Quite a lot there. For the catch-up section, I'm still playing Fallout New Vegas. I'm playing the Long Road DLC. I believe, no, it's called the Lonesome Road DLC. And it's very different. There's some problems with it, I can definitely feel, in that Old World Blues gives you this teleporter, so whenever you're over encumbered you could just take all your crafting ingredients to a special house location and you could do a whole bunch of crafting and extra crafting trading that can only really be done at that one place. But you can't use the teleporter inside any of the other DLC. And so the Lonesome Road DLC itself is recommended for players who are level 25. I'm nearly at level 50, so there's no problem there. But the Old World Blues recommendation was the level 15. So if you were to follow the recommendations, you definitely would do Old World Blues first, and you'd probably do all of Old World Blues first. I don't think there's really a way to even leave without finishing Old World Blues main quest. So yeah, it puts you in this weird position where the Lonesome Road has you once again, like most of Bethesda games, you're wandering around, you're picking up a lot of vendor trash that may have some value if you stockpile enough of it and use it to craft more expensive things, but it is just a lot of menu management, resource management, a lot of crafting for not really much reward. And then the actual gameplay of the Lonesome Road is kind of interesting. It looks like it's a much smaller DLC from what I'm suspecting and what the map looks like. And it's very much a linear path. There's basically a straight line from the beginning to the end of the game, it seems like, with a few locations that if you go to the right you'll be able to search a location and find a little bit more. It definitely feels like it's supposed to be really, really difficult enemies, the equivalent of what I would call super mutants in the Fallout 3, but because I'm playing on very easy and because I have a really strong gun now that I've done all of the main game in all of Old World Blues, it's not really a challenge at all. And it's not like there's a ton of enemies even at that. So yeah, I do like the experimental style that Lonesome Road has. is much more vertical, is much more of a devastated post-apocalypse, post-nuclear fallout world. All the buildings are crumbling, and you're not really going inside the buildings much at all. It is just, here's a half-broken building, it has 3 floors, there's going to be enemies with potentially guns or rocket launchers shooting at you from those buildings. The missions are going to be, you're going to run forward and find a gate, and then you might need to find a key, so then you're going to have to run back and search for a key to unlock the gate, which going back to find a key even is something that just doesn't really happen in Fallout New Vegas for the main game. There's honestly, I don't think too much more to it than that, though. There's a story they're trying to tell, and I won't spoil that. And it might be intriguing, but your experience with that story is going to vary wildly based on, have you done other DLC, or do you even care about the character who the story is concerning? Because the character, their antagonist, seems like he was supposed to be somebody who's really important, and I just don't really know who he is from the main game. I half wonder if he's supposed to be a character from like Fallout 1 or 2, and that he is a reference to some previous character. The other things before I started the Lonesome Road DLC was to find the last snow globe in the Mojave, which was literally just on a checkout desk in a hotel. I walked in the hotel, I looked all around for collectibles, but there usually is nothing on the front desk, and so I just walked right past it. And then I finished Raoul's companion quests, which took a lot of work because Raoul needs you to talk to 3 people, and one of the people moves based on where you are in the story from one location to another, and then the other person I needed to talk to, but couldn't, I did manage to talk to one naturally, was named Loyal, and because of something you do, a room gets replaced with a different version of that room, which I assume means they probably are just loading the original version of the room several feet below the floor. And in that teleportation to change the interior, I suspect they straight up teleported Loyal into the floor also, which, if Bethesda games were programmed better, there would probably be a way of detecting that and fixing that. On the other hand, you don't have to fix those problems if you just have the NPCs always hard-coded to one location behind their stall as a shopkeeper or in their house. Even if you have them just respawn after a week or so, or every 24 hours, that would work fairly well too. In fact, you could probably do a decent amount of cleanup to just have characters despawn at midnight and then respawn in their beds. Maybe even find a story reason for that. It wouldn't make sense in the Fallout universe, but if you're going to make a Fallout style game, you could do something like that easily. That's one of the things that I'm feeling as I continue to play Fallout New Vegas, is that there is just, I think, room here for a Fallout style, Bethesda style game that really isn't that much of a Bethesda style game, really. But I do think that there's just room for something better. with modern optimizations and just not being stuck to the existing, already established way in which Bethesda games have been designed. And even Fallout 4, I think, does kind of evolve somewhat in that direction. But maybe not enough. In a lot of ways, I would say Fallout 3 was the point where an open world role-playing game had a real chance of gaining and maintaining a larger audience, and certainly that's probably why the next game, New Vegas, has a hardcore following, but I don't think it continued down that path well enough. And then you see things like Borderlands really optimizing the experience way more and eliminating a lot of the nonsense items. The grindy things you have to do in Borderlands compared to the grindy things you have to do in Fallout New Vegas are night and day different. Borderlands, the grindy things you have to do are usually taking on arenas and fighting large wave-based attacks in arenas, or maybe you're running around shooting specific enemies. But yeah, while you may spend some time in the shop in Borderlands, it's usually not that much time. And what you're usually doing in Borderlands when you're in the shop is you're actually looking at guns that are actually viable to play and use, and just comparing one stat to another stat, where it often is not even apples to apples comparison, so you have to just get a general vibe of how the gun feels and whether you like it or not. And I guess that's pretty much all I think I want to say about Fallout New Vegas right now, because there's just not a lot happening that wouldn't be storyline spoiler stuff. I still am very much having to sort inventory for 20 minutes or more after every episode, and I was hoping that that would stop on Lonesome Road. That there is definitely a possibility that if they had just made Lonesome Road a situation where you were handed one gun, you could only use that one gun the whole time, and you were just picking up stim packs to refill your health, and bullets. That's basically all you would need. And then maybe what you would do after that is you would possibly be picking up currency of some sort that would be traded at the end of the mission to buy a bunch of other resources. But yeah, there's probably about 100 different items you can pick up in Fallout New Vegas. I think you could easily break it down to 3, where that is that. Of course, that's not very role-play. It doesn't allow you to equip any defensive armor, so maybe you could bring it to 4 or 5 if you have a helmet and armor. But yeah, it just starts to get more and more complicated if you are picking up more kinds of health or stat changing items, or if you're picking up a whole bunch of crafting ingredients. Yeah, inherently, I guess role-playing has also probably taken a different meaning in my mind, and probably most people's minds, from what it may have been in the past. When people say role-playing game these days, I think gamers aren't really thinking well, that means you can customize the weapon you use, and you can customize the armor you can use, like a Dungeons and Dragons character. People are more thinking you're going to have dialogue choices and to choose what you say and how you react, and you're going to have branching paths on whether you want to side with one team or the other. Yep. And I definitely don't think modern gamers really care if you're going to have agility stats or endurance stats or perception stats or strength stats and things like that that come directly out of tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, in a lot of ways, I guess Bethesda games are courting the Dungeons and Dragons fans, while not really recognizing that Dungeons and Dragons fans are not the target audience for video games, probably never were, and they're probably not a high audience that actually plays a lot of video games either, because you really can't serve two masters there. Either you're gonna spend at least one day a night, one day a week playing Dungeons and Dragons for 3 hours plus, or you're gonna spend at least one day of the week playing video games for 3 hours plus. You're probably not going to do both consistently in a week. So, yeah. This isn't particularly video game related, but the cartoon Robotech, and I call it a cartoon because I think most anime fans would agree that it is not an anime. It is a cartoon made for the West that chopped up 3 anime series and then wrote their own story and dubbed their own lines of dialogue. But yeah, the, I guess, foundational breakout hit cartoon of Robotech has the entire series on Blu-ray for $75 as a collector series. Some little Robotech minifigure action figures also in it. This is probably an indication that Sony, which owns Crunchyroll, is trying to clear house. It may even be an indication that they are trying to actually de-emphasize Robotech in favor of bringing the actual animes out, because it has very much been a case that things like Macros, which Robotech is in part based on, have been kept hidden in favor of advertising Robotech and not confusing people. At least that, I think, is their thinking, as they've not really released it. $75 for like 80 episodes of a cartoon is not bad for a collector's edition. It's definitely not bad for Blu-ray box sets of anime. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to definitely decide whether I want to dip into the till of my own personal money to see if I want to buy that. Financially, I don't think I talked about this. Yeah, a lot of things have been breaking recently around me, and my washing machine, which is very old and well past due, well past the 5 years you really can expect from a washing machine these days, has broken in a weird way, and I don't know if it's my fault or not. If it's not my fault, it's a weird coincidence, so I basically have to take the blame for it. But I bought a humidifier, which was also an extra expense. A dehumidifier, not a humidifier. Yeah, I can't do anything here. I've lost. The only thing I could possibly do is just continue to summon things, I guess. And get the daily quest done. Anyways, I bought a dehumidifier. Dehumidifier has like 50 pints of water that it's getting out of the air for the, at least at the beginning, like every 6 to 12 hours. So I was putting somewhere between 100 and 150 pints of water down the drain and looking towards that. So I thought, oh well, I'll save some money on water. Not that water's particularly expensive, and I will dump the dehumidifier tanks into my laundry washing machine. Well, I went to turn on my laundry washing machine and do laundry after that, and it overflowed, which it really shouldn't do that. Like, there's a pressure sensor, as far as my research has gone, there's a pressure sensor that senses whether a load is full or not, full of water, and that way, regardless of how much clothes is in there, it still could get the same amount of pressure from the water. And so that really shouldn't have messed anything out. And then once it overflowed the first time, I think it may have short-circuited some kind of circuitry. I'm not even sure there's actually a computer in there, but I think it had broken something. And so after multiple attempts, each time with water overflowing and driving away and coming back after 20 minutes and finding it overflowing and water pouring onto the floor everywhere, after several attempts, I got it where it was finding the right level on the first fill, because it will do like one fill to wash the clothes, and then it will do a second fill to wash the clothes, and then it will do a drain and a rinse, and the second fill continued to overflow, and so the whole thing just seems like it's broken. Also, my laundry washer is incredibly old, like 25 years old, and so there's lots of things wrong with it. And so, yeah, need a new laundry washer too. And on top of that, I spilled water on the floor that may have touched some of my Nintendo collection that was in the garage, and so I may have water damaged some of the Nintendo collection. Not all of it, not even particularly a lot of it, but some of the bigger stand-up cardboard displays might be ruined. Of course, I have no idea if the collection is completely ruined anyways from just being in the garage and being in the heat and humidity. I was able to reuse the dehumidifier and put it in the garage to suck out as much humidity in the air, and 12 hours later, or 24 hours later, it is all dry now, and I'm using the dehumidifier to try and keep the humidity as low as possible so that mold does not decide to grow, which would be the next big concern, is that there would just be mold everywhere. And so yeah, when it rains and pours, as far as things breaking, and that sent me down a path certainly about thinking about what kind of laundry washer I'd like to buy. I'd like to get the one that was advertised at CES, that hasn't been announced and doesn't have a company brand associated with it, where it is a smart washer dryer combined that also has a automatic robot vacuum mopper attachment at the base. So one hookup and you have 3 very high-tech devices all together. But yeah, that's not even out yet. Then the other high-tech one I would recommend is there's a Samsung automatic washer dryer that is recommended, but that's about it as far as combined automatic washer and dryer. It is kind of ridiculous that even decades later you still don't have a set it and forget it solution for washing clothes. You have to set it, wash the clothes, then take the wet clothes, transfer them to a dryer, and then start to dryer. And yeah, there's just no reason for that in my mind. At the very least, the stacking, washing, and dryers should have a punch out where a trap door would open and it would just drop the clothes into the dryer on the bottom and then send some kind of signal to a dryer, even if it was two completely separate units, which for repairability, since these things are not built particularly to a high quality these days, even that would make some sense. But yeah, and one of the complaints certainly of a combined washer and dryer is that it will take forever, but that is certainly going to just come down to your lifestyle. Are you the type of person that does laundry by starting a load, then coming back an hour again, then starting another load, and doing that for several hours on one weekend day? Or would you prefer to be the type of person who could just throw all your clothes in one washer, maybe even once per day, and just hit go and then forget it until you come back the next day? I am very much the set it and forget it type of person. The Samsung combined washer and dryer is ventless, so you don't have to vent the lint and hot air outside anywhere, but it still needs hot and cold water hookups and drains for dirty water, and so it is still not really something where you could move a washer dryer into just whatever room you needed it to be in. And in my situation, moving a washer and dryer is something that I would like to do. I'd like to put it, right now my washer and dryer are in the garage. I'd like to put it in either a bathroom or just in any room possible. There are some ways you could do that, certainly, but there's a lot of codes and careful thought that needs to be put into it. So yeah, I've been spending a lot of time just searching for that. But yeah, because the Samsung is like $2,000 right now on sale, and a regular washer is like $500, depending on the cubic feet you get. The recommendation is to buy a Speed Queen, but then with that, if you're buying a Speed Queen, you're going to get about the smallest washing size possible. So you're going to be washing very small loads, which is why everybody recommends Speed Queens, because washing small loads prevents the washers and dryers from becoming unbalanced and breaking, which they are now mostly designed to hang for anti-vibration reasons, which makes them even more prone to breaking. They're hanging on springs, suspension springs, basically. So yeah, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that over the past day, on top of just opening the garage doors, letting it dry out. But yeah. So I really haven't been thinking about video games much lately, although I have been playing video games, and I've been watching some Amazon Prime TV shows still. Still watching that Akma game on Amazon Prime Video, which I think is good enough. And then Dead Places was what I was watching before. Oh, I probably should have done something else. I lost interest in watching Dead Places after about the 3rd or 4th episode just because I was getting distracted. I think more than anything. Which that happens to about half of the shows I watch, is I just get distracted and lose attention. This guy's doing everything possible. Every single thing possible. Question here, has he defeated me? Let's see how this goes. I guess I would lose if I can't summon something here. So the question is, will we lose or will we make it? Suppose I should also mention that the Summer Game Fest is either going on or was going on when I first started streaming. So that's happening. That's a great way for me to advertise against myself and say, hey, go check out this other thing. But in fairness, the Summer Game Fest will be there, and I said this in the last stream, it really is more useful to just wait for a mainstream video game journalist to recap the trailers and presentations than it is to watch it live. When you watch things live, you can't speed things up either. Which is another issue. Yeah. I think this will be the last game we play today too. Not really going anywhere with it. And I guess I don't have a lot to recap. Yeah, I guess the best thing I could say as advice is have a bigger safety net of finances always, more than you think, because things do like to break all at the same time. It feels like, or bad luck feels like it all always happens at the same time. Okay, so let's start going to the big news that has caught my attention. Scrolling down my Twitter feed right now just to look at the new things that have popped up in the few minutes in the hour we played. So a new studio, according to GameDeveloper.com, called Kindred Spirit Games has been formed by ex-Mediatonic staff. The two Fall Guys alum are already at work on their debut project, but apparently aren't looking to beef up on staff quite yet. So it's just really seems like it's two people working together, which in fairness, even one person can be a studio, can be a corporation, an LLC, but yeah, that is an odd timing for an announcement, certainly, and it's not really saying anything of real importance at the moment. The Thing Remastered has been announced for all consoles and PC, which this is one of those kind of movies where I'd really have to question how do you make a video game out of that, because you're either going to do like you did in the Aliens games and make it much more of a shooter than the Thing movie. And of course, when we say the Thing movie, we mean the second Thing movie, not the third Thing movie that I believe was actually a prequel to the second Thing movie, and definitely not the first movie from the 60s or 50s called The Thing. But yeah, visually, I don't think these screenshots look amazingly good, and I just don't know if this really is even an action shooter or if this isn't closer to something like a Telltale game. I would like to see it in gameplay motion. They're calling it a third-person shooter. But then you also run into the problem of, if you're going to make a game based on The Thing and it's going to be a third-person shooter or first-person shooter, you need to set it after The Thing has nearly taken over the entire planet and there's just hundreds of things running around. YouTube Gaming did something useful here an hour ago by talking about the Summer Games Fest streaming live. At least that is actual video game news and not just absolute nonsense. And I would assume it is streaming and linking to a YouTube video, so it at least is promoting YouTube at that point. Apparently Mark Cerny thinks consoles can guide the industry's tech future. This is from GameDeveloper.com. In Cerny's eyes, console development is a key part to figuring out where technology is headed, regardless of the platform players are on. Which, this guy looks creepy. This is a poor screenshot of the guy, I have to say. The problem with a headline like this, and that I would have to disagree with, is what do you call a console these days? Because consoles aren't what consoles once were. They weren't custom bits of hardware and silicon using custom CPUs and GPUs that were uniquely different from what you could just buy and put into a PC. The APU setup, I think, very well may just be the future, even for people building custom PCs, regardless of whether you like it or not. That I think the shared RAM concept is probably going to show up in Intel and AMD CPUs of all kinds. And then pretty much everything else is exactly the same. Wi-Fi, CPU, everything else is exactly the same as far as what building a Xbox Series X is versus building a PS5 versus building a Steam Deck versus building a gaming PC. Maybe the Switch is slightly different because it's such older technology, but it's not really changing that much. You would have to get back to something like the PlayStation 3 was the last console that actively was trying to do something completely different, and forward compatibility became a real problem, and backward compatibility was a real problem for the PS3, so much so that the original versions of the PS3 just have the components of a PS2 in them to play PS2 games. So yeah, I really can't agree with this headline much. I think the Steam Deck is the future, and I think if you technically are calling a Steam Deck a console instead of being a portable PC, then that would guide the industry's tech futures. The thing, depending on what industry you're talking about, the thing that is guiding CPU and GPU development these days is very much jumping on the bandwagon of AI and large language modules. It's not gaming by any means, and it definitely doesn't seem like 5K, 8K, higher resolutions is pushing technology further either, which is what gaming would have to be trying to do if it was going to push technology forward. And I guess technically you could call it Steam Deck a console because it is kind of a unique case where it has a lot of components of what a gaming laptop could be, but then it also has 2 touchpads and buttons, which is what I think really would make it a console if you're going to define consoles as things that come with controllers of some sort that have buttons. And sure, Steam has that unique advantage of Steam OS and working on that, and the Proton DB compatibility layers for making Windows games work on Linux. And yeah, there are rumors that Xbox may start giving some hints towards a rumored portable Steam Deck competitor of some sort. I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft, not Xbox, releases something like that as a more work-focused portable Steam Deck competitor. But the Surface laptop and the Surface tablets from Microsoft, even though people sung their praises very much, just really didn't get refreshed or focused on after the fact. Astro's Playroom has received new content and trophies ahead of Astrobot's release, so they're promoting the first real game from Astrobot by adding content to the more tech demo that Astro's Playroom was. And then Lollipop Chainsaw Repop will get its first trailer and release date next week. The game is a remaster of the 2012 action game, and we've been following that somewhat closely. Then Video Games Chronicles says Capcom says players gave its first $70 game a moderate reception. Dragon's Dogma 2 has sold over 3 million copies since its release in March, which I think that is very much a case of Capcom not admitting defeat on the idea of selling games for $70, which Capcom doesn't have to admit defeat here. All they have to do is wait it out, because eventually, just because of inflation, video games will be $70, and $70 will maybe not mean as much to people, so they're just ahead of the curve. But yeah, obviously Capcom wants to sell games for more. All the game companies do. And game developers, game players, gamers, don't want to pay more for video games. And frankly, there's an argument to be made that a lot of games should be even cheaper at launch because they often are unfinished games or games as services, or just not as good as some of the greatest games of past generations have been. And we are comparing new games to the hand-selected greatest games of the previous generations. And yes, that's not fair, but that's just how it is. That you're held up by the standards of the best, not by the standards of the average or the standards of the least. Multiverse's first patch addresses Xbox performance and unlocks all fighters in training. Seems to not really have mentioned or addressed microtransactions to refill your life in the game. apparently Silent Hill 2's original developers wanted to make more changes to the remake, but the Bloober team resisted. Its producer says the original creators didn't want to make the same thing all over again, which inherently that has been a thing I've heard from game developers, is that they really just don't want to repeat the same work they've done again, even if it is just a remaster. And that puts you in a weird position, certainly, in that there obviously are two games to be made there. There's the one that is just a visual and maybe interface and audio remaster of the original game, so you can play via nostalgia and have a great time. And then there is moving the series forward and fixing what the creators feel like are mistakes, and making a different game, which that's probably where Silent Hills should come in, is that the original developers should just get the green light to make a different game called Silent Hills that is similar to Silent Hill 2 but changes quite a bit. The danger here is Silent Hill 2 Remasters comes out. You can't make another game called Silent Hill 2 and release it anytime soon, or you're going to cause a bunch of confusion. But even looking at the trailer of Silent Hill 2, there is obviously things that could have been tweaked, just as far as getting rid of the fog or expanding the fog, making the layout of the city and different, better, larger, more interactive, tweaking the number of enemies, tweaking how you fight the enemies, things like that. There's a real danger that new people coming to the Silent Hill 2 remake may find it to be a fairly small map with fairly easy adventure puzzles. They may not stick around long enough to appreciate the story, and they may not have the nostalgia needed to appreciate the story and the full experience. And it creates this weird, is it censorship when the original developers want to change things? And probably it is. Yeah, I think it is. If you're changing something and calling it a remaster, then you're probably censoring yourself at that point. And we know that there is some visual changes that have been made that effectively are censorship, as far as the outfits of some of the characters, where previously some of the characters had their belly showing. Now the belly's been covered up. Of course, we didn't scream a lot of censorship at the Resident Evil 2 remake, which totally changed the costumes of a lot of characters. Some people did, but then the game was moddable enough that you could just put in a different outfit. And then the Resident Evil 4 remake, some people certainly mentioned the censorship issue there, where the outfits had been changed. So, but it definitely doesn't seem like it's creating controversies like it would have in the past. I would probably be more interested in Resident Evil 2 if it had just been called Resident Evil 1 and was a whole new game. Not Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill 2. If they just called it Silent Hill or Silent Hill 2, Silent Hills, and made a whole new game, that would have probably caught my attention more. The number 2 is a bit of a problem though. I'd rather it be called Silent Hills or Silent Hill and just ignore the first one in the first iteration. GameDeveloper.com has this headline: live service dissonance, which is a big word, and toxic positivity thwarted Suicide Squad. Insiders tell Bloomberg that how Rocksteady went from single player hits to a live service dud. So apparently there's a whole article here talking about how the development of Suicide Squad was a mess, and I guess tries to put some logic and reason to why the Suicide Squad really failed. Yeah, toxic positivity is a weird phrase, but it does seem to be probably a good descriptor of what was going on even before the game was released. There was a lot of criticism that they were just ignoring, and there's some pretty obvious things that were going to be problematic around Suicide Squad that they didn't seem like they really were going to address, as far as the game not really having much of a story and all the characters feeling the same as how they play, and all the characters being bad guys fighting good guys, which was always going to be a problem also. Moving on, let's see. The Guerrilla Collective presentation showcased more than 70 upcoming indie games, which Video Games Chronicle here has a full list of. Yooka-Laylee is getting a remaster called Yooka-Replay-Lee, which might kind of suck because a lot of people probably own Yooka-Laylee and now they're being asked to probably pay for a remastered version of the game, which probably isn't worth it. Evil vs. Evil is a funny name. Five Nights at Freddy's game. I didn't know if they were really making any more of those. But the vast majority of these indie games don't have any presence yet, so all you are seeing is just a long list here with no pictures or screenshots. If you were just to hit play here, this is 3 hours presentation that you'd have to sit through. So yep, we are into certainly event season as far as presentations and announcements for games. 6 months into the year, we're starting to open the doors to games that are going to try and either sell before Christmas and Black Friday, or at least be in your mindset. It is still very crazy in my opinion though that you just have the first half of the year be almost completely empty of video games, and then you have a deluge of games in the second half of the year. Let's see. The new CEO of YouTube retweeted somebody. Let's see if we've got it here. Yeah. He retweeted this Pirate Software, who says they're a game developer making #Heartbound, which I don't know if I've heard that. Saying it doesn't matter how long you've been making things, never stop, which is exactly the kind of thing YouTube wants to convince its creators to do, is just keep on making content regardless of how many views you get. Noticeably, this looks to me like they made a YouTube account in 2016 and didn't put any videos out at all until very recently. And that initial spike and that first success of 10 million, nearly 10 million views is the thing that will make any channel be noticed by the algorithm and actually be seen. In fact, I would say if this was a case where it went up and down just a few hundred, few thousand views each time, this channel would probably never show up in the algorithm and be quote-unquote shadow banned from being promoted, because low quality video after low quality video, or poorly received video after poorly received video, ruins a channel. But yeah, what are you supposed to take from this, really? Yeah, I have no idea what you're supposed to take from this retweet though. Get lucky. That's about all you can say. And what's funny about this too is that he's down to just like 5 million views more recently, and with this kind of spike you may not really be getting as much ad revenue if you were monetized anyways, because one really successful video would get you a ton of views before you were monetized, which YouTube never talks about that, how you could get thousands, millions of views before you're monetized, and that won't get you a dime. Here we have from Komatsu the Ukulele remake, Yuka Replayer. It has new art, animations, challenges, secrets, and mechanics and more. I felt like Ukulele was a little too difficult to control as a game, and I lost interest in it near the end, back half of it. So yeah, if it was maybe tweaked a little bit and I hadn't recently played it, I might consider playing it. Obviously I'm always looking for something like a Donkey Kong Country, Mario 64 3D platformer style game, and I've never been able to find a recent one on PC that feels anything like my nostalgia for Mario 64. They all feel way too difficult and just designed poorly and frustrating. And yeah, the bar has certainly changed quite a bit compared to Mario Odyssey and versus Mario 64. So I would expect PC games to try and be as good as Mario 64, even if I know they probably won't be. So LEGO Horizon Adventures is going to be announced this week. It's been claimed the game will reportedly be available for both PS5 and PC on day one. The question to ask here, though, is this a TT Games from Warner Brothers, or has LEGO simply licensed their name to some other company? And I guess we probably have to wait for an announcement. There was a kind of odd Horizon Lego set. Here it is. That really couldn't have gone anywhere. They couldn't have just continued to make Lego sets based on Horizon Forbidden West. But yeah. And I kind of wonder just what you're doing with that, because if you look at like the Lego Star Wars from TT Games, the Lego Star Wars games are supposed to be silly and kid friendly and are parroting effectively the Star Wars movies. So what are you really parroting if you make a Lego version of Horizon Forbidden West? Are you making something that's just easier? Are you remaking the entire game and just putting new skins on it? Are you playing like Horizon Forbidden West? Or are you playing like a Lego game? By which I mean a TT Games Lego game. TT Traveler's Tales, Warner Brothers subsidiary. And I don't know where you go with this. If you do play this game, are you then encouraged to play Horizon Forbidden West again, or move on to a sequel that's not made in Lego? And I don't know how much you can really do this as far as just making everything out of Lego and reskinning existing video games. But this is a rumor too, so the smart thing to do is basically do nothing until it actually gets announced and we get some actual screenshots. Rocksteady is reportedly working on a Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut. The studio is also planning to pitch a new single-player game following Suicide Squad flop, it's claimed. Now, what I find irritating about this is if Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut does get released, it's really gotta be just like a collector's edition of all the DLC I don't think people would rebuy Hogwarts Legacy for just slight variations. Apparently, Suicide Squad lost them $200 million. Here they're mentioning TT Games and other subsidiaries of Warner Brothers, all of which are owned by AT&T now. But I feel like Hogwarts Legacy is mostly a single player game, so a director's cut probably would work. It's just maybe a little too early for that as a thought. Maybe they should just call it a collector's edition and include mostly just the DLC and expansions. This game, Nalubek's Dungeon Master, is coming to the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and Switch on July 9th. It has been on Steam since 2023, and I was wondering, this name sounded familiar. Let's see, this looks to me like this might be a Dungeon Master clone with perhaps maybe a slightly different art style and theme. I guess if it is mostly positive, then I might as well just put it on the wish list while I'm looking at it. Slitherhead launches November 8th for the PS4 and 5 and the Xbox Series and PC. This is from the creators of I think the first Resident Evil game. Well, I'm not sure. Might be the first Silent Hill game. There's a whole trailer thing. Someone Game Fist. There's a rumor that Microsoft is reportedly considering bringing a new Halo Combat Evolved remaster to the PS5. It's claimed that various Xbox titles are being weighed up for a multi-platform release, which I guess internally there is just this thought about multi-platform releases from Microsoft to make more money, to give up so much, a little bit more on the hardware, which makes sense because the Xbox is definitely not selling particularly well. So yeah, if Microsoft stopped making hardware and just published games, it probably would be better, because the culture of Microsoft overall seems to be better focused around software instead of hardware. And if Xbox decided that they needed a console, they probably would always just make a console, but it very much could just be an afterthought. But yeah, I guess this is one of those headlines where we're just gonna have to wait and see, which is kind of the truth for most headlines, really. And then here we have the Lollipop Chainsaw game designer, and then we can zoom in here and see that the official title is Lollipop Chainsaw Repop. Nope, this is the pinned tweet from 2023. Yeah. Let's see. It's finally back on June 13th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. We're pleased to reveal the release date, platform, and first trailer at that time. So yeah, Lollipop Chainsaw announcements incoming, although he's been fairly consistent about putting out announcements anyways. Yep. And I don't really think we should expect too much different or too much weird. A lot of reposting here of insects and armor, not really connected to Lollipop Chainsaw, which seems weird. It's kind of like how American McGee has kept his YouTube channel and then went quiet for a while, and now is just using his YouTube channel to put out videos of his family on vacation or advertisements for his wife's plushy dreadful stuffed animal products that they sell. And really, I think that's what they've been making most of their money from in recent years. Moving on, let's see. GameDeveloper.com says there's a report that Summer Game Fest trailers can cost up to $550,000. It seems like maybe they give some trailers out for free, depending on whether Jeff Keighley wants to give out trailers for free to small indie companies. But it definitely seems like the move has always been to make Summer Games Fest feel relevant enough to get game companies to pay a little bit less than what they were paying at the height of the prices for E3 presentations, but still paying a lot for advertising. And certainly $550,000 is a lot of video games you have to sell to make up the difference there. And that's where you potentially are getting into weird Hollywood math, where you're spending way more to show a trailer next to so many other trailers, which I would have a problem with that you can't possibly expect that you're going to recoup that much money in sales, depending on what kind of game you're releasing. Yep, they have also put out here, I might as well mention, that June 22nd, I believe, is the last day of the half-off sales for Minecraft. So, buying the Java Bedrock version is my recommendation. You don't need to buy the deluxe edition, just the $15 one. This gets you the free launcher, the Bedrock edition, and the Java edition. Most people should probably just play the Java edition. Alright, and so that's going to move us right into all the new games on Steam, and I want to move fairly quickly today. So let's just burn through all this. I guess I probably need to speed up the switching of the thumbnails even a little bit more. It is moving ridiculously fast. I would almost give this one a chance if it wasn't so green. But yeah, the problem here is the stall, and I haven't programmed anything to fix the delay between when it starts streaming, then flipping through the screenshots. Yep. And I would imagine what we're going to run into is that there will be lesser items of note today, and then more items of note next stream with all the announcements and new things. Here we have something that very much feels like it is a direct parody of the Punch-Out series, which I've always wanted a rhythm game Punch-Out clone. And there's very few boxing games of any sort that are actually good. This is a VR game. So it's like nothing. We have another visual novel. Is this in English? Here we have another visual novel. There's some weird relevancy here to this G mode game, but English is not supported. This is a spin-off game from Persona 3, played on the G mode portable console. Here we have another survival clone. Here we have another garbage looking game. I'll give this a chance and be generous. Not gonna give that a chance though. I think that's a no. Actually seeing a lot of pretty obviously garbage games. Yep. And it feels like ever since we approached the summer, even before the summer started to happen, I was eagerly anticipating a summer fest that just seems like it's not happening anytime in the next few weeks. So I've been saying that maybe all the bad games, Rocksmith Plus, just terrible. Bring back Rocksmith 2014. They bricked Rocksmith 2014 to force you to buy a subscription to this watered down remake. Blatant cash grab that will lock you out when the next version launches. Of course, the problem with any rhythm music game is the music licensing. This actually looks like exactly what you'd want for kids to learn to play music, and yet it is rated very negatively. Smurfs, I'll make a new YouTube short on. Yeah, it definitely seems to me like the amount of garbage games sometimes just randomly increases. I'm not sure that there's so much of a reason. I'm giving a lot of these visual novels too much of a chance by even putting them on the fall list. Here we have another mostly negative game. At some level, maybe Valve would release game was way better in the playtests. They seem to potentially change the game to be more pay to win than in its playtest. But you know, if it was a case that Valve knew some games were bad, then was releasing them at specific times before sales so that they don't get as much promotion, why wouldn't they just not release the game at all? Yeah, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Almost gave that one a chance. I don't know if there's anything here. Guess I'll make a YouTube short on that since it's rated well. these are all like new games from the looks of them. A lot of these feel like mobile games that have been ported to PC, which I think we're going to see more and more of that. Speaking of mobile games, Tinkafuma updated for a new summer event, and Memento Mori, their updates are more minimal, and it really often just adds a new character to collect, and that is it. Which is not great. Autopsy Simulator is rated mixed. There was a Autopsy Simulator game, but I don't think it was called this. Yeah, and the recommendation I imagine here to similar games won't point me to. No, here it is. The Mortuary Assistant is more of a horror game. It's rated very positively. So there is room to make a autopsy simulator that is less of a horror and more of a medical simulation experience, but yeah, this one doesn't seem like it's doing a good job there. Blockbuster Inc. also mixed. Wow. A lot of these games had me excited to a certain extent, and they're not really doing anything. One of the things I am recognizing though is that I absolutely would not try to clean up my follow list in any way while playing big long games like Fallout New Vegas. Like, they are mutually exclusive endeavors. One is to grind out and make video game content and actually play video games. The other is to take extra time away from playing video games, and instead of the extra time you'd have to put into Fallout New Vegas. So if I am ever going to do a follow list cleanup, I need something that can make a lot of episodes and schedule a lot of episodes, which is my main problem, is I'm just not really scheduling things. Yep. This is too simplistic of a game to... Well, it's free. You know what? I'm going to put it on the follow list. And it's a Scrabble, but with Tetris elements where the words fall downward. Which I guess that's somewhat different. Satan Moans. Give that a chance. This is one of those weird games where I have no idea if it's good or not, so I have to just assume it's worth a chance. Gonna say no to that one. Gonna say no to that one. And definitely gonna say no to that one. No to that one. No to that one. That's just not quite a visual style that I think is good enough for visual novels. It's maybe more of an opinion there, but whatever. And in general, I should not make YouTube shorts around visual novels. They just don't seem like they're catching people's. And see, I would say yes to this, but I don't want the title of one of my videos to be that, so no to that one. No, the Hidden Cats. Nope. Almost feels like it may just be a new person on the team approving video games, because there's way too much getting approved here, getting listed. It's another one based on this thumbnail that I would expect to be in the adult section. Looks like it is a mobile game, though. Just being ported. I guess I'll put this, make a YouTube short on it. No to that one. No to that one. Nope. 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 Is this one in English? No. Yeah, it is weird that increasingly we are getting better quality visual novels from Japan, but then they are not in English. And we haven't really begun to see, I'll give this a chance, any of the older visual novels that that came out in Japanese only. I haven't seen any of them add English as a new language, although in fairness there may not be a mechanic that I have to detect if a game is now available in English. That's not something that inherently gets promoted unless you're just following the game. So here's yet another Airy game. I could have sworn Airy Peace of Mind has already been released at least once before, if not multiple times. Let's see. Dragon is Dead. I feel like we've made a YouTube short for this already. Gamer's Tale. I'll give that a chance. Definitely, I'm not seeing anything that's grabbing my attention, though. And at some point, I probably want to try and investigate to find if there is a good symbol that would be a divider between the title of a video game and the title of the series, New and Trending Games. I don't think there is. I think that was the problem. A game, Hell Survivors, does make an interesting argument as far as what kind of enemies do you really want to fight in a Survivors game. What kind of animation style do you want in that kind of game? Ghost Janitor looks like it's suffering from dark screenshot syndrome. I think I'm increasingly suffering from mispronouncing things or losing momentum while pronouncing things, adding a lisp or a drawl. Bring me that shawarma. Give that a chance. This doesn't look like anything. This doesn't look like anything. This doesn't look like anything. That doesn't look like anything. I definitely am ending today just wanting more variety, more sports games, more driving games, just a little bit of everything you could possibly think of. Let's see. Yeah, I just don't think that there's any real big news even. So it's gonna load. People just continuing to play the same old from the looks of it. The lack of variety does, I think, act as an indicator that just fewer games in general have been released in the past couple days. Probably because of the Summer Games Fest. Why release a game when people won't be paying attention to that? As far as gameplay, assuming my metrics are right, the Destiny 2 spike has dropped back down, but it's still got a long way to fall before it fully is below this point, which would be about an average point, whereas everything else is mostly staying fairly neutral, with the exception of Rust, which has seen a spike. So I'm not sure what made Rust spike up. That's an interesting question. And then on Steam, it doesn't look like we have a full page takeover. There is the Summer Showcase of Summer Showcases, a name that rolls off the tongue, for a hub with tons of video game events and announcements. Which we'll come back and check that in a second. Otherwise, it just seems like nothing's happening here. Oh man, the one thing I didn't think about though is that they may be giving away Steam decks for watching. They were doing that last year as far as watching the Video Game Awards or the Summer Games Fest. Both Jeff Keighley events and both fairly similar events. You'd think one might be better than the other, or they might be different from each other. But yeah, this is just a hub. We can see this is live 43 minutes ago, so it's either live right now or it ended 43 minutes ago, or it started 43 minutes ago. There's just a whole bunch of spotlight events they're showing off here. The Xbox Game Showcase could be some big news. Steam Next Fest, probably not so much, but maybe. And then this woman-led games catches my attention. In that I don't know how many game studios really exist that are led by females or women, and I don't know how big those studios really would be. I also don't know how much different that would be, because most game developers are fairly heavy left-leaning, and so they want to be virtue signaling feminists anyways. I've never felt like there has been a high level of sexism in video games. If anything, the highest level of sexism in video games is just the fact that there's a heavy amount of males that work in the game industry compared to females. And I think a lot of that may just have to do with females not being welcome or treated well by like their teachers from 10, 20, 30 years ago, and not being welcome in the programming classes to learn programming to develop games. And in the past, there definitely was sexism. I don't know really where even was coming from, that video games were for boys only. Definitely don't think that's the case these days. There is definitely always an argument about how are you representing yourself, as far as, do you want a mascot character who is looking very much like an anime girl for your woman-led games character, somebody with prominent cleavage being highlighted, and legs and thighs and bellies being shown, and all of that. I'm not saying you should make a character that's in a burqa, different hair colors, super long hair, horns. This is several, way too many anime girl tropes in one. Does that really represent what women-led games or women in video game development should represent? Of course, if you were to take that same question and ask why Devolver Digital is representing itself with Volvi, I wouldn't be able to answer that question either. Usually, most of these characters don't even try to have mascots, and they're just putting a logo and a title, which is probably better. But yeah. Yes, women tend to want to see other attractive women as their avatar and mascots, but it probably, if I was gonna make an avatar for this, which let's just click on it and see where it takes us, I would maybe go something a little bit more cutesy, chibi like this. Might work a little bit better, although the thigh-high socks are something that was not being shown there, and the outfit and the hair is still a little too crazy. But I think what I would want is a more nerdy girl look, or gamer girl type look. Somebody who's attractive but also is just dressed down to play video games, not dressed up to go on a night on the town. Yeah. Looking at the games that they're highlighting, there's nothing amazing here. This bed we made character design, it's perhaps a little too conservative, but it's probably a little bit more realistic as to what they should look like, or what an avatar should look like. The lo-fi girl probably is a good example of a character. Yeah, really, I think that's probably the best character. If you're going to make an avatar like that, is I'd say make it look like the lo-fi beats to character. Because yeah, you need something very generic for these events to cover a lot of different games, which you can see the there's just a wide variety here. This is not a terrible character design either for something generic, and it just needs to be super safe, fairly generic. It's weird how many of these games are also horror games too. Do women do horror games better? That's an interesting thought. They probably could get deeper into the thought patterns of deep psychological fear. But yeah, it seems like you have to click more to even see more. And a lot of these games feel like they are fairly old games being promoted. Do any of these others really catch my attention? No. Once again, it's just better to wait until you have somebody write up all the announcements. You also have this Wholesome Direct, which, yeah, women-led games and Wholesome Direct should probably be on about the same page. Yeah. I guess Latin America Game Showcase also may highlight that there's a push to make more make more games in Latin America, which I know they have the desire to do that. I'm not sure they're going to really succeed at that, though. Maybe this is why you're not having a summer sale too, is that there's just way too many showcases of showcases happening. Anyways, let's go through the headlines and I'll finish early today. Let's first read off Video Games Chronicle headlines. And let's see if I can do this without messing up too much. Astro's Playroom has received new content and trophies ahead of Astrobot's release. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop will get its first trailer and release date next week. This year's Accessibility Summer Showcase featured games with accessibility options. Which, why wouldn't that be the case every year? Accessibility Summer Showcase. Is this some new event? Yeah, it's the second annual event. See, that catches my attention. You do have, once again, a list here of games I don't recognize at all. 25 minutes. And yeah, I think a lot of this is just going to come down to oh, here's a good example here of an accessibility option. See, this person made this open dyslexic font. Right now it's on a Comic font, probably Comic Sans. And here is a simple font. And then this open dyslexic font is supposed to be good for people with dyslexia. I'm not sure it really is. Yeah, people's dyslexia is always different, so the mileage will vary. And this visual novel definitely seems like it has some functionality things. Yeah, this might be a unique enough showcase that it would actually catch my attention and I might want to actually watch it, because it's actually people talking to the screen, talking about what they've done and tried as far as making their games more accessible. Of course, also, none of these games are like AAA games where accessibility would affect more people, and I imagine disabled players or players that need accessibility options are more likely to want to play the AAA games than they are to play some weird visual novel that they're never even going to hear about it. You can see the showcase is showing off the Xbox accessibility device, not actually made by Microsoft, and then showing off a more generic controller that looks more like a PlayStation DualShock 2. I saw in a video that the Xbox accessibility device, and it's a lot smaller than I thought it was. Every time they've shown it off, it's always been screenshots with no bananas for scale. So I always thought it was closer to like a drum kit, a digital drum kit with giant big button pads. But in reality, it is smaller. It is about the size of a small wireless keyboard, 108 key, 83 key wireless keyboard, probably 83 key. So that is smaller. It would take up less space. It feels a lot more usable that way and makes a lot more sense at that scale. Otherwise, yeah, previously it felt like it was just giant. It might also be a case that I had seen it next to kids and the scale was off because the kids were small. The first Slitterhead gameplay trailer has leaked, confirming a November release. Capcom says players gave its first $70 game a moderate reception. Civilization 7 has seemingly leaked ahead of an imminent reveal. It looks like Amazon's MMO New World could be coming to consoles. Is New World actually out? I'm not sure. half of Hellblade 2 players on Xbox have made it past the first boss. 87% haven't beaten the game yet, which those numbers are fairly low. Like, I don't know how many bosses are in Hellblade 2, but even if there was only 3, to say half of the player base hasn't gotten to the past the first third of the game is quite an issue. And it's not like I've seen other stories, news stories, saying Hellblade 2 is just really difficult and it's the next Dark Souls-like game. Of course, it's always worth pointing out that only about 30% on average of gamers get to the credits on your average game. But 30% is definitely not, would put this at 70%, not 80%, as far as people who haven't beaten the game yet. So, yeah. Doesn't feel like Hellblade 2 is being received particularly well. And my suggestion to Microsoft is that the makers of Hellblade 2 should just become the internal animation studio for all cutscenes in every other game being developed under a Microsoft subsidiary. They should just do cutscenes and cinematics because they seem to be good at that. Pre-render and put them in whatever engine is being used for whatever game. This animation style, this hyper-realistic animation style in particular, might be fairly interesting if you could scale it down to something like Killer Instinct. Of course, as you zoom the camera out, maybe you don't need this much detail, but that definitely would make Killer Instinct more interesting if it stopped being a cartoony also ran to Mortal Kombat and instead became a more realistic fighting game compared to Mortal Kombat. How to watch the Summer Game Fest 2024 live stream. Does Video Game Chronicle really need to make a headline telling you how to watch a live stream? I don't know. Maybe. They also had previously announced that it would be largely focused on previously announced games, so we may not even have that much news from the event on Monday. All 5 Game Boy Mega Man games have been added to Switch Online, brings the total number of Game Boy games on the service to 29 in the West. Seems kind of weird to release them all at the same time, though. These would be, of course, the Game Boy Black and White Grayscale, 4-color Grayscale Mega Man games, not particularly the good Mega Man Game Boy games. One sec. Sorry about that, just having a coughing fit. But if I rush you, I won't have to run to the bathroom at least, which that's always nice. So yeah, I guess if you've played all the other Mega Man games, play the Game Boy ones too, why not? Microsoft is reportedly considering bringing a new Halo Combat Evolved remaster to the PS5. We love you, we miss you, we hate money. Indie publisher supports closed studios with SGF billboard. New Blood Interactive's message can be seen in downtown LA. One second, I'm gonna cough again. I'm not sure what SGF is, though. San Francisco Summer Game Fest, I guess. So somebody's putting their money where their mouth is, I guess, making a statement. Which is always dangerous for a game company to make that kind of statement. New Blood Interactive to make that statement, because they're going to make the same amount of layoffs at some point. Anyways, I saw an interesting forum post on Reddit talking about how the rate that companies have to pay in particularly Texas in the United States for unemployment insurance goes up if they fired one person, and the rate stays up for 3 years. And that is why there are many stories of people being fired in Texas and elsewhere, and then they file for unemployment through the state agencies, and the companies will straight up lie, let's not even dance around it, about the circumstances of why they were fired. They'll try to make it seem like they were fired for cause, thus the person is not entitled to unemployment insurance. Now, unemployment insurance tends to not listen to any of that, but that they desperately will lie. They'll say you quit when you didn't quit, or they'll say you were fired for poor performance. It is a ridiculous situation, to say the least, and a great argument for universal basic income, which solves lots and lots of problems. Anyways, back to video games. Sonic X Shadow Generations release date, cover art, and screenshots have seemingly leaked. Multiverse's first patch addresses Xbox performance, unlocks all fighters in training, which obviously the fighters should have been unlocked in training from day one. Silent Hill 2's original developers wanted to make more changes to the remake, but Bloober Team resisted. 3DO horror comedy first-person shooter Killing Time is being remastered by Night Dive Studios. I feel like I maybe have heard of this game, but maybe I haven't. Night Dive Studios may very well be just digging very deep into the history books as far as games. Calling it a classic first-person shooter. The thing in particular about first-person shooters is that there was just so many of them. That was basically all that were on PCs in the era of post-Doom and the success of Doom. Yep. This is the kind of game that nowadays would just be a mod and be something fairly silly that you would get for free. But back in the day, it would have been something that they were selling as a companion to something like Doom. Yooka-Laylee is getting a remaster called Yuka Replay-Lee. Assassin's Creed Mirage is now out on iPhone and iPad. A PC demo for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is available now. A Card Battler Rabbids Legends of the Multiverse is one of 4 new Apple Arcade games today. What are the other 3? Return to Monkey Island Plus, Tomb of the Mask Plus, and Fabulous Wedding Disaster Plus, I guess, are the other 3 games. Interesting that Return to Monkey Island is not getting more coverage. Have we really crossed the line where Monkey Island is less relevant than Rabbids spin-off card games? Maybe. But see, particularly if you have a card battler game based on the Rabbids, if there's not a PC version of that, that's not a game that would really last for that long. Dragon Age Dreadwolf gets a new name with its first gameplay reveal next week. It's now called Dragon Age The Vile Guard. Marvel's Midnight Suns is now free on the Epic Game Store as next week's free game is leaked. LEGO Horizons Adventures will be announced this week, it's been claimed. Rocksteady is reportedly working on the Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut. The latest Xbox Game Pass titles for consoles, PC, and cloud have been confirmed. Final Fantasy 14 and 16 team says it could announce 2 new games soon. I would kind of assume that they are just going to be new Final Fantasy games, if I was to guess. EA Sports FC 24's free UEFA Euro 24 update is now available. That's a lot of letters. I don't know what the UE stands for. Universal European Football Association would be my guess. HBO's The Last of Us Season 2 will have 7 episodes. Tchia and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl are reportedly coming to Game Pass. The Xbox Games Showcase could run for 2 hours and include 30 games. That's a lot of time to do that. That means they're giving, on average, I guess 4 minutes to each game. Of course, you can easily adjust for that too by showing a lot of commercials and other things in between. One second here. Yeah, I got something stuck in my throat, got that tickle in the throat that is ever so annoying. Silent Hill creators Slitterhead to get its first gameplay trailer this week. So yeah, it was the creator of the first Silent Hill that is now releasing their game Slitterhead, and I question if Slitterhead is not just going to suffer due to all the talk and announcements and release of Silent Hill 2, which, as a remake, I don't know if the Silent Hill 2 remake is based off of anything that Silent Hill 1 creator did. I don't think it is connected. I think the Silent Hill 2 game creators originally were a completely different team for Capcom compared to the Silent Hill 1 team. Alright, and so that's going to bring us to the Gamatsu headlines. Let's look at these. Power Wash Simulator DLC Alice's Adventure Special Pack has been announced. Let's see if we can find it on Steam. Power Wash Simulator. Yep, this is basically Alice in Wonderland reference, which is in the public domain, even if Disney might try and claim otherwise. Some elements unique to the Disney cartoon is probably not in the public domain, but then the Alice in Wonderland Disney cartoon also, it's close to the being in the public domain and probably should be in the public domain. I would argue there's a decent argument that everything pre something like Toy Story 1 should be in the public domain, and that the copyright terms should just be way shorter for these types of super popular relevant cartoons of many decades ago. Moving on, back to video game news. Slitterhead launches November 8th for the PS4 and 5, Xbox Series, and PC. Petite Island has been confirmed for the PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch. Maybe it's pronounced Petit Island instead of Petite. Yeah. There are several photography games that have been announced over the past year or two. I'm not sure if any of them gained any attention. I think they all came out, though. Honkai Star Rail version 2.3 update Farewell Pinnacle launches June 19th. B Project Rusai Fantasia launches July 15th in the West. Battle Crush launches in early access on June 27th. Is this on PC? Yes, it is. Is it gonna be something? Maybe. Game Boy, Nintendo Switch Online adds Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Astrobot editions and pre-order bonuses have been detailed. I thought I was gonna manage to not have to go to the bathroom, but I am gonna have to go, so I'm gonna pause and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, yeah. Astrobot editions and pre-order bonuses have been detailed, was where we were at. Yeah. As far as the headlines, and then, yeah. Kind of an awkward place to have a bathroom break because I don't think I'm going to be playing for much or covering news. I guess I'm not playing. Yeah. For the most part, except for at the very beginning of playing, I'm only playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then most of this is news, isn't it? Alright, moving on. Frog Gun Encore launches June 25th. Which seems like only one of the characters has a frog gun. This is the kind of character in particular, though, that also like would be a better avatar for women-led game companies, is to just have that young, youthful, happy appearance. Of course, that would be more girls in game development as far as what the avatar looks like, but I still think that would be a better move. Than a more mature anime style girl avatar. I wouldn't go full polygon the way she's depicted in this game. In fact, the screenshots of this game actually are fairly disappointing compared to the thumbnail. Ova Magica launches in early access for PC on July 23rd. Here's an interesting example of a kind of neutral looking character. I could see this being either a male or a female character, and it probably doesn't matter much one way or the other, since it's a farming simulator monster taming game. Stardew Valley meets Pokemon. Yeah, we've seen the Pokemon parody game Palworld, and there hasn't really been any updates to that. Here's another avatar for that would make a lot of sense. Go with glasses, go with the hair up, go with respectable professional dress as an avatar as far as women-led. Is an example of the kind of avatar you wouldn't want for women-led game companies. The punk pirate outlook with lots of belly showing. Yeah, it's all about who you want to, how you want to represent yourself and what you aspire to be, really. Whether you aspire to be respected or whether you aspire to be seen as a avatar of beauty, or if you aspire for your avatar to be seen as an avatar of beauty or desire. Under the Island Guerrilla Collective 2024 trailer is available on Gematsu. Retro-styled first-person survival horror game Labyrinth of the Demon King for PC launches in 2025. Let's see if it's got a Steam page, I guess. It's always a weird situation when your game is described as retro, because really all that means is that it's ugly. There was a lot of Asian horror games kind of like this back in the day. Not a lot of them came to the West, though. You know, I still got that cough too as soon as I start talking. Sunzai Guerrilla Collective 2024 trailer is available on Gematsu, which makes me suspect that the rest of these articles from Gematsu are going to just be a long list of new games that have trailers, because I bet Gematsu made a page for every single one of them, as a good video game journalist should have. Crypt Custodian launches this summer for all consoles and PC. Metroidvania game about cleaning up the afterlife. Interesting. concept. Playing Fallout New Vegas, that feels like a game that's all about cleaning up a wasteland, a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland, as you collect more and more vendor trash. Constance launches in late 2025 for the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. Let's see, that looks like that might be something. Bloodless launches August 29th. And see, this might be one of the few exceptions where the old animation style might be something more than just a cop-out. But even looking at this, I'm not very impressed. The pixely, small, sprite-based images. It's probably controversial to say, but I kind of feel like sprite-based art is gotta be dead at this point. That there's just no reason to make games using sprite, pixely images, and that art style is just not really going to be appreciated by the majority of gamers. People would prefer the smoother CGI flattened to 2D look almost always. And I guess the remakes of like Paper Mario even highlights that, and that the visuals have been upscaled, and as the visuals get upscaled, the images get smoother a lot of times. Grifford Academy has a story trailer. This looks like this could be an interesting game just based on this thumbnail, because you have one girl in a hoodie with a hockey stick, you have one girl with a guitar, and then another girl over here, I don't know what her weapon is, and another girl I assume over here. So it seems like it's some kind of odd all-girls school turned to a RPG action adventure game. Which, yeah, there's a Japanese game somewhat like that, but I can't remember the name of it, where it's an all-girl RPG, and they form teams and fight together. I don't know if they actually form teams. The animation here might be a little lackluster, and the whole game itself might be shorter than it seems. You never know. Of course, the well, here's a male character at least, so it's not all females. Be more like this reference here. It's not going to help me any. As far as trying to remember the game I'm thinking of, I think it's called Blue something. Is the game the Japanese RPG I'm thinking of, but yeah, I can't think of it, so I need to just move on. Elsie adds a PS5 version, a side-scrolling roguelike action platformer. But this is not on the follow list, which tells me I have not seen this game before. And yet, Gematsu is implying that announcements had already been made. Cyberpunk roguelike first-person shooter Deadlink is coming to the PS5 and Xbox Series on July 30th. Also might be that some of these games are just really old, and thus I took them off the follow list. Here's an example of an older PC release that should move over to the wish list. I just wanted to make sure first that it was a single-player game and not a hero shooter, which it could have been. So, should I make a YouTube short just because it's getting a console release? In the past I have, but I'm kind of trying to make fewer shorts overall. So I think Maybe the answer is no in that case. It was on the fault list, so I probably did make a short for it previously. But wait, no, that would have been in 2023. So I probably haven't made a YouTube short on this one. And so yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Probably should change the button that I keep accidentally clicking as far as a new page, so it is just a blank page instead of saying Firefox in the middle of it. But I'm not really ashamed that I'm using Firefox in any ways. Firefox is my recommended browser to people, and I think you're going to see a lot of people jumping to Firefox as Chrome is starting to roll out, from what I hear, their anti-ad blocking technology that's going to prevent ad blocking extensions to be installed into Chromium and Chrome based browsers, including Microsoft Edge. Echo Generation Midnight Edition is coming to the Switch and Steam on June 19th. This looks like this might be an interesting, maybe kid-friendly horror Scooby-Doo type experience. Scooby-Doo if Scooby-Doo was actually scary. Yeah, this looks interesting. Notice how the thumbnail here is cropped out quite a bit compared to the thumbnail here, and that changes the visuals quite a bit. Like when you're just seeing a kid and a dog, a kid, and another kid, that's way different than seeing a spooky Japanese monster and a spooky, I would assume this is Norwegian Viking type monster and skeleton people. This reminds me of like Mad Max back in the day, which I had a small obsession of Mad Max for a brief time. It was never particularly popular. Horror toys, with a horror cartoon series promoting the toys. Action RPG Bittersweet Birthday launches in Q2 2025 for the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. This is another one that I still am leaning towards. Any game that bothers to put out a press release to Gematsu should get a YouTube short, because Gematsu will put out basically any press release they get. So just spending that extra energy tells me that people are actually trying to promote their game and it isn't just a low effort asset flip. Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire gameplay trailer and screenshots are available at Gematsu.com. Yeah, this looks like a flying around game. Maybe there's something there. I kind of doubt it. Strategy RPG Wild Tactics has been announced for PC. Anthropomorphic animals. I haven't really seen any anthropomorphic animal games in a while on Steam, and usually when you see them on Steam they are furry games that are romance focused or straight up sex focused. Roguelike strategy game Day of the Shell has been announced for PC. Slice of life action adventure game Motor Slice has been announced for PC. Motor Slice. It's an interesting title. Not 100% sure I believe there's a full game here. Each of these screenshots seem fairly pre-rendered and empty. But yeah, that just means the game has been announced and is in development. Lady running around with a chainsaw sounds a lot like Lollipop Chainsaw. Destroy every machine inside. The only difference is Lollipop Chainsaw, she's Juliet, the main protagonist of that game, is killing zombies instead of machines. And this rendering here of the goggles makes it seem almost like she has a third arm, because the color palette doesn't stick out enough. I would definitely make the goggles either yellow or black to stand out a little bit more, or at least the color of this brown gloves. Which, interestingly, she has two different types of gloves on, I guess because she's holding a chainsaw. And I would assume the orange here is to represent like chainsaw pants that would protect her if she accidentally slipped and cut herself, which is probably not going to be part of the actual game. Apparently they're saying it's inspired by the Prince of Persia series, but it's a girl with a chainsaw in a sci-fi setting with robots. Okay, weird. Creatures of Ava gameplay and story trailer is available at Gamatsu.com. Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit has been announced for all consoles and PC. This is all the Summer Games Fest announcements. One thing to mention about the Summer Games Fest and their YouTube channels, they really just flood their YouTube channels with the trailers. As soon as they get announced, they basically get released, which is about, I guess, all you could do, because you don't want to hold back and release trailers a few days later. Although that would be the right move to do if you were running a YouTube channel. This also is apparently a point and click Five Nights at Freddy game, just completely different from the others. But yeah, if you were running your own YouTube channel for Jeff Keighley, you would put out the live stream of the Summer Games Fest. You would see if you could get special permission to then upload a higher quality of the live stream and replace it in place with what the live stream was. If your YouTube doesn't allow you, then you probably would wait at least a day, probably a week, for a re-upload, and so you'd make that less priority. And then what you would do is you would have 2 trailers at most released every day after the live stream, because you're going to be lucky if 2 notifications at most get pushed out. The algorithm in YouTube is only programmed to put out 2 premiere trailer things at a time. And so if you want to get people to actually look at it, now if your intention is to just make sure nobody else uploads the trailer and gets views, you would put it out as fast as possible, which may be their only intention. But you can also upload things and then block anybody who tries to upload the same trailer or stream coverage of the game, and that would stop a lot of re-uploads from happening. But the main problem that they need to address is probably just making more content for Jeff Keighley's YouTube channel, so that they post something more consistently, something once a month at least, instead of Summer Games Fest happens, you get a whole bunch of videos dropped, then the channel goes silent until the Video Game Awards happen 6 months later. Then you get a bunch of whole drops from the Video Game Awards, then the whole channel goes silent until the next Summer Games Fest. Anyways, moving on with the headlines. Post-Trauma adds a PS5 and Xbox Series versions and has been delayed to the fall. Post-Trauma is some kind of horror puzzle game from the looks of it. Looks like it could be something. or it could be nothing. It kind of has a little bit of Control vibes. For as much as people sang the praises, mostly it was mainstream video game journalists singing the praises of Control, I definitely haven't seen a lot of people trying to copy a lot of what Control was. And inherently I think that's because a lot of the gameplay that Control wasn't really that unique. And the storytelling is too on the nose. So if you were going to make another SCP based game, you would have to do something very different to avoid being just accused of ripping off Control. Wizards of Legend 2 Prove Your Spellcasting Prowess trailer is available at Komatsu.com. Fabraz announces an expressive open-world 3D platformer called Project Tides. I've never heard of a company called Fabraz. This looks like this could be something of interest. 3D platforming game. Uniquely colorful like a Mario game. Not so uniquely kid-friendly from this image as a Mario game. And maybe that's part of what should happen, is that in making 3D platforming games, maybe it should just be something between Mario Odyssey and Conker's Bad Fur Day, where Conker's Bad Fur Day was way too mature, and Mario Odyssey is really kid-friendly still. Maybe make something that is closer targeting 16, 17-year-old age range as far as a 3D platformer. A little bit of story, a little bit of edge, but not something crazy. And certainly it would be fairly crazy to go in the other direction and make a 3D platformer that was even more mature and more adult than Conker's Bad Fur Day, which was very much an edgelord 18-year-old game. Yeah, a mature-only 3D platformer would be weird, to say the least. It would be contradictory in its two goals. One to entertain and one to titillate, or one to challenge and one to titillate. You know, I can't imagine how you would make an adult game that was a 3D platformer anyways. You would probably just have a lot of 3D platforming that led to cutscenes if you were going to do that. Anyways, my mind is wandering, so let's move on. Killing Time Resurrected has been announced for all consoles and PC. Put this on the follow list. I think this was one I just skipped over and wasn't going to make a YouTube short on it because it just looked too weird to me. But I don't know why I would have skipped over it even in that case. It's probably a poor decision on my part. Volgar the Viking 2 has been announced for all consoles and PC. Can't help but assume that Volgar the Viking 1 was a game that was made decades ago, and this is some kind of incredibly late sequel, or this is a port of an older game. Yeah. Seems like it might just be an incredible light. Yeah, it says more than a decade after Volgar the Viking's bloodbath of a debut from the Crazy Viking Studios. So it's a decade later sequel. Which, okay. Maybe there are some games out there that deserve a sequel 10 years later. I also have to say, I kind of miss this style of fantasy, like Dungeons and Dragons fantasy that looks like this, where it's more barbarians and more of a hand-painted art style, a lot of skin showing, a lot of raw fury in the depictions, lots of muscles being depicted. When you look at what fantasy games are these days, it's often just a little bit more, I don't know, civil might be the word to use. A little too civilized, a little too much about planeswalkers and Magic the Gathering. even Baldur's Gate 3, I'm not sure you really had any barbarians and Viking type characters. It's all more about the mages these days. Did I click on the link here? No, I didn't. Of course, this is going right back to that thought about our sprite-based old games relevant. And I'm not sure which way I would guess on that. Deathbound overview trailer is available at Gematsu.com. Yooka-Laylee remake Yooka Replayly has been announced for consoles and PC. Yeah. I feel like it's probably a little unfair. You're not going to be able to get a free upgrade. This is interesting. You have a whole bunch of links to other games that are smaller, custom-made images. I don't think this is something that we're going to start seeing more consistently from Steam pages. It might be a little too small. Like looking at my TV monitor 8 feet away, 30-inch screen, I would have some trouble reading some of the text here. But you are squeezing more games, but then do you need to really advertise and squeeze that many games? Any storefront is going to be a delicate balance as far as just how many games they should present to you, and mostly it really should just be an A option and a B option in every spot, and if you scroll down then you get an A option and a B option. In this case it's a C option, but yeah. I definitely wouldn't recommend buying the original game at this point. What is this? Digital art book. But yeah, there's a reason why this doesn't just dynamically stretch over here or add a second row. You can overwhelm a person's attention when trying to sell them something. And that's what I think runs here, is that none of these images really are big enough to catch my attention. And the names alone aren't going to catch my attention. A 50-player skateboarding game Reckless has been announced for PC. It's an interesting thought. Do you really need 50 players? Would there ever actually be 50 people skateboarding at the same time? Or is this just an arbitrary MMO feature that they're advertising, that it could be 50 players at the same time? I think at most you're going to have 4 or 5 people who would want to play a skating game at the same time. As a skating game, this looks like it's mostly about custom character design as far as the screenshots go, and maybe even level design a little bit. But I'm not sure how much the controlling of the skateboard plays a role. Obviously, some of these screenshots imply you're actually skating, but it may not be the focus. And sports games like that are one of the few games where having a custom peripheral, an actual skateboard, might make some sense. Otherwise, most of these sports games are just going to be button mashing combination games, effectively just fighting games with a different skin over them. Instead of fighting people like in Street Fighter, you're button mashing to do combos and actions. Yeah, come to think of it, yeah, Street Fighter 2D fighting games and sports games are fairly similar. Of course, you could probably boil most games down to you're just pushing buttons and making combinations. But there is a certain flow to a skateboarding game and a fighting game that you have to follow, things you don't really have to follow so much when you're playing other kinds of games. Moving on. Ever After Falls launches June 20th for all consoles and PC. guess I don't have anything to say there. Kind of a interesting art style for this thumbnail, but I wouldn't be surprised if the actual game looks more just sprite based. Yep. It's nice sprites though. It's not bad. Just not really similar enough to this thumbnail to explain why the thumbnail would look like that. Dragon Age Dreadwolf title has been changed to Dragon Age The Veilguard. Gameplay reveal has been set for June 11th. A Kimbot launches August 29th. This is one we've seen before. Kind of has a Jak and Daxter feel from that one screenshot here, but I don't think it probably plays much like that. I guess that's one thing that a third-person perspective game can really give you, is that you can put the camera down low, it can show the feet and the legs and just show a feeling of more movement in these kinds of screenshots, but honestly I'm not sure if you can actually play particularly well. That is a problem with Fallout New Vegas, is that there's something about the screen that anytime you get a cinematic kill, even though I've turned off cinematic kills, the camera does not zoom out wide enough, and so you get a lot of cropping off the top of the head of characters, and it's just not visually particularly good. Kimbot obviously is a aimbot merged with a Kimbo as a phrase, but I suspect it's not really an aimbot in any way. Atlas Fallen major update Reign of Sand has been announced. Okay, I guess I have to leave it at that since it doesn't... Oh, nope, there is a Steam link. When did this game come out? In 2023? But it's mixed reviewed. I don't think I have really any desire to promote this. Single player with online co-op, very few people playing it. Its all-time peak was only 2,679. It's pretty much a dead game, and I don't think games like this deserve a second bite at the apple and a second chance to promote themselves, so no YouTube short for Atlas Fallen. Nulla Buick's Dungeon Master is coming to the PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch on July 9th. This is already on my wish list, because I just put it on the wish list earlier today in the stream. I'm surprised I'm actually going to end up taking 3 hours for the stream. I guess if you take a bathroom break though, that's not super surprising. Xbox Game Pass adds Octopath Traveler 2, The Callisto Protocol, Still Wakes the Deep, and more in early June. I would like to see The Callisto Protocol be received better and get a second win because of it coming to Game Pass. I'm not sure any game really has severely benefited from coming to Game Pass after its initial launch. But yeah, I imagine very few people are going to play the Callisto Protocol. The Famitsu sales from 5/27 to 6/2 has been updated on Gematsu.com. Let's see. Paper Mario 1000 Year Door in the #1 spot. New info is Tokyo Psychodemic for the Nintendo Switch in the 7th spot. And Dave the Diver for the Nintendo Switch in the 18th spot. And Umber Call in the 24th spot. And Wizman's World Retry in the 27th spot. With the exception of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade, which Stellar Blade's still selling well, The entire top 30 list is 27 or so of the top 30 games are Nintendo Switch games. So, you know, even if the Xbox Series is doing particularly bad in Japan, PlayStation 5 software sales are doing horribly in Japan, and the hardware sales are not beating the Switch, when particularly if you add in Switch Lite and the original Switch, which are selling. We may have a point here where the original Switch is finally going out of stock in Japan, and the Xbox Series X may actually beat it. But yeah, we are just about 6 to 7 months away, well, maybe 7 to 9 months away from the announcement and release of the next Nintendo console. And then I imagine the next Nintendo console will sell like hotcakes. Heaven Seeker, the Savior of this Cruel World, launches June 21st. Twin stick shooter. Now, often just described as a survivor's game, which is a shorter title to describe something than to say it top-down twin stick shooter with roguelike, with RPG character development, or roguelite elements, or roguelike elements. I don't even know how to properly describe it. Wizardry Variants Daphne launches in October. I thought Wizardry was a much older game than what this looks like. So this is some kind of smartphone spin-off game of the Wizardry series, it looks like. Yeah, and it definitely feels like Wizardry is an old game series that they are bringing out of the closet to try and sell to a new audience and revitalize. And that probably is never going to happen again, because I think most game companies now, even if they went out of business, are going to be acquired by other game companies that are going to constantly try and promote and keep games relevant in some way. The small exceptions here and there will happen, but most games will get remasters, re-releases, or just be available for purchase in their original forms. Tribe 9 game first trailer details and screenshots are available at Komatsu.com. A lot of these are Japanese RPG games that we saw today, though, and so there's always a chance that too many games will be too similar. And that's going to bring us to the GameDeveloper.com headlines. Let's go through them. This will be fairly quick, I imagine. New studio Kindred Spirit Games, formed by ex-Mediatonic staff. Mark Cerny thinks consoles can guide the industry's tech future. Rogue Snail acquires the publishing rights to Relic Hunter's Legend after a split with Gearbox Publishing. Yep. I heavily suspect there will be more splits with Gearbox Publishing. If I remember correctly, Gearbox Publishing is the part of Gearbox that Embracer Group kept, whereas I think it was Take-Two, no, it was, I think 2K, either Take-Two or 2K acquired Gearbox as far as the 3 different video game Gearbox development offices. And we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. There's a report that Summer Game Fest trailers can cost devs up to $550,000 US dollars. Octopath Traveler series hits 4 million sales amid current gen resurgence. Live service dissonance and toxic positivity thwarted Suicide Squad. Hypercharge Unboxed has sold 50,000 Xbox copies in under a week. come dine with me. Here are video game characters I'd love to eat. This is part of the food week of Gematsu. Irrelevant articles. Here you have a disclaimer for light cannibal references. Let's see. So, who would you like to eat with versus who would you like to eat? I don't know why you'd like to eat Pac-Man. He looks like he is just a puck of yellow. So, big old tablet of vitamin C would be my guess of what he would taste like. Maybe, maybe something orange juice like, or just urine like. That's not very flavorful. The bulborbs effectively are eaten from the Pikmin series by the Pikmin flowers. Far-fetched, which that's pretty much just an internet meme of people cooking Pokemon, which has gotten, the most recent one I've seen is fairly graphic, where they're cutting up and preparing Pokemon to eat. Choo Choo from Zelda is just gelatinous. I don't think so. Dizzy is an egg, so I guess that's not too strange. A giant crab enemy from what game? I don't even know. Would just be a big crab. And honestly, I'd love to eat big crabs because my main complaint about crab meat is that it's a lot of work to get a very little amount of meat. So, yeah. Cubert. I don't know why you would want to eat Cubert. Slippy Toad. I mean, if you want to eat frog's legs, I guess, but of all the frogs that you might eat frog's legs with, Slippy Toad is perhaps the worst frog to pick, since he doesn't have very long legs, isn't very tall. In fact, you'd probably get more meat off of, or better quality meat off Star Fox or Falco. Slippy Toad here is fat and short, so you're going to get a very fatty meat. Okay, a cuckoo is just a chicken. Okay, that works. And if anything, that highlights why am I even talking about this article. Come to think of it, this is a complete waste of time. But anyways, I'll finish my thought. Yeah, if you're going to compare what an animal looks like on the outside versus what it looks like once it's been butchered and prepared, there's complete different appearance there. The C-suite. And so this all ends with just eating the rich. Yep, that's exactly what this entire stupid article was around. And sure, fine, if you agree with the idea that people should jokingly say eat the rich, sure. At a certain point I would say maybe tax the heck out of the rich first before just killing them and eating them. There is definitely an arguable argument that it's immorally wrong to be as rich as most rich people are, or at least the 1% of rich people are, but maybe that would be imprison the rich and not eating them. You're getting down to the level of desperation where you have to eat the rich because you're starving to death otherwise, I guess is the implication there. So yeah, a really stupid article from GameDeveloper.com. Waste of time, pointless. Apologies that I wasted your time with it. To end on a really stupid meme joke of eating rich, and arguably just saying the C-suite doesn't even make most sense. A lot of the harm around management is done by people not in the C-suite. It's done by upper managers, middle managers, lower managers, all doing their own thing and causing havoc everywhere they go in a lot of cases. Anyways, moving on. Bespoke Pixel launches with $25 million investment and Ubisoft veteran at the helm. Hades 2 ascends to become Steam Deck's most played May game. A Like a Dragon TV series is finding its way to Prime Video in October. Behavior Interactive has cut 95 jobs in a strategic corporate change. CI Games hires Tencent and PlayStation veteran to spearhead development. Expectations for us are high, says the new PlayStation CEOs, both of them, as they outline their vision for the future. I didn't ever read this article, so their vision for the future obviously wasn't that interesting. Nobody else reported on it. Content Warning has sold 2.2 million copies and netted 8.8 million players in 2 months. And Ubisoft Toronto will co-develop Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. A lot of those headlines were older headlines. That's going to be it for this show. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and keep on watching.